New Directions in the Humanities, June 2012, Montreal, Canada. Critical Thinking Across Disciplines, presented by Dr. Beth Stutzmann
and Professor Donna Colebeck, representing Southern Polytechnic State University Research Learning Community from Marietta, Georgia.
Our introduction and presentation agenda is as follows. To introduce who we are, SOTL, the RLC, the professors and their disciplines, our goals, critical thinking, the techniques used, comparisons, and problem-solving techniques used within our classes.
What is SOTL? The Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, teaching and sharing the research publicly. It is part of what is our research learning community at Southern Polytechnic State University, which is under the umbrella of the Center for Teaching Excellence. We are a volunteer group of faculty who meet every other week. We collaborate and engage in scholarly research and related endeavors regarding teaching and learning.
The disciplines represented are various. The arts, including music and art, engineering, law, and language. This is who we are, all the professors, and a few pictures of us. Our proposal is to investigate a study throughout the various disciplines across the Polytechnic institution. We want to identify critical thinking skills and make comparisons and problem-solving strategies that we all use. And we want to identify correlations between these skills and strategies throughout the various disciplines. Critical thinking across the disciplines, our concepts, premise, and goals for this presentation are to identify and compare critical thinking skills and problem-solving strategies used in different courses and disciplines at Southern Polytechnic. When teachers from various disciplines across the campus collaborate together, a university affords students fundamental critical thinking skills and valuable learning opportunities that are transferable between classes and majors across the curriculum. Our goals are to identify and present ways single-discipline instructors address critical thinking and problem-solving strategies, as well as ways multidisciplinary music and arts courses strengthen and reinforce student thinking and learning and aid in the transference of knowledge across the disciplines.
At a Polytechnic institution, we have techne and logos. Students understand the mechanics of their occupation and can actually put it into practice. It's hands-on applied knowledge, focusing on application of information more than just theory.
Critical thinking and problem-solving strategies. At a Polytechnic, critical thinking is associated with technic courses. However, both critical thinking and problem-solving are utilized within other courses and disciplines, including art and music. There was a time when it was not technology alone that bore the name techne. Once there was a time when the bringing forth of the true into the beautiful was called techne. That's a quote from Martin Heidegger.
Part 1, Critical Thinking. Critical thinking involves careful evaluation and consideration to reach a conclusion. We identify strengths and weaknesses. It requires the thinker to be skilled in analytic and evaluative thinking. We need to recast it in an improved form where necessary, and we need to think of it in 3 ways: analytic, evaluative, and creative.
To define critical thinking, it is the mental process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information to reach an answer or a conclusion. Critical thinking is reasonable, reflective thinking that is focused on deciding what to believe and what to do. A critical thinker is the consistent application of intellectual standards to effectively make decisions, solve problems, and establish beliefs. One of the professors in our RLC group.
Here are examples of critical thinking. You can see that there are some simple problems that you can do for young children, working all the way up to visual examples that sort of play with your eyes and what you see.
Here's a matching activity that uses critical thinking skills. Even at a very young age, you still have to understand the concepts to create an outcome.
Here we have which circle is larger. Is it the center circle on the left or on the right? In reality, they are both the same size, so this is a case of optical illusions.
Here's a 9-dot problem where you have to use critical thinking skills to figure this out. The solution's on the following slide. And here we have Bloom's taxonomy, which is the steps of critical thinking. The simplest being at the bottom of this screen, which is just learning facts and recalling information. Higher order thinking skills include the critical thinking, analysis, and problem-solving skills. To the left, we have the old Bloom's taxonomy. To the right, we have the new. And here we have methodologies of teaching and learning and the student learner. These are some things that professors have to think about. Which types of methodologies are they going to use within their classes? And we also have to consider the different thinking skills that the student learner has.
The 3 questions that we asked our professors and also students are, how do you define critical thinking for your classes? What problem-solving strategies, activities do you use in your classes to strengthen and reinforce student thinking and learning? And from your perspective, what critical thinking skills are transferable to other classes and majors? So our first question, defining critical thinking. Basically, we have some responses: using logic and reasoning well, realistic thinking, making decisions, using analysis, applying, and reflective thinking. Our students also respond: any form of thinking outside the box, analyze, understand, and apply. CT is a level of thinking that involves remembering past problems and using that to create new solutions. Use logic to solve problems, thinking on a higher level, taking an analytical look at a problem or a solution.
Part 2, problem solving. What problem-solving strategies and activities do you use in your classes to strengthen and reinforce student thinking and learning? Here are some steps to solve a problem. And the Spanish teacher said analogy, from the known to the new material in small steps. Engineering professor replies, thinking about the assumptions, if it leads us to an answer that is wrong. Verifying each step mathematically and scientifically to make sure it's valid or invalid regarding if it is wrong again. Thinking about steps that lead us towards a solution and not claiming that we know something more precisely than we do. Applying theory and identifying constraints and conditions. Evaluating and selecting based on certain criteria.
In problem solving and critical thinking in art, we use analysis and critique. It combines evaluation of all available information. It's an analysis of visual relationships and an exploration of alternative solutions.
For music appreciation, critical thinking skills we use are analyzing and synthesizing. Students, for instance, have to create a story, and therefore they have to understand the concept material from the medieval, Renaissance, and Baroque eras in order to create a new story. For music theory, which is very mathematical, we use a lot of exercises in music analysis. By reading individual pitches within a chord, then they have to assess and evaluate the type of chord, and then evaluate that type of chord into the contextual whole of the piece. These are some strategies we use in my class. In the law class, the professor uses much role-playing, debating, games, and student presentations. Student responses for question number 2, trial and error, recording lectures and listening to them again, using measurements, data, facts, and common sense to strengthen thinking and learning, slow myself down and think slowly but more accurately, keep doing a problem many times, working in groups and understanding other people's point of views, reverse engineering, memorization, and application.
Part 3, transference of critical thinking skills between disciplines. From your perspective, what is transferable to other classes and majors? Our Spanish teacher says that critical thinking skills are necessary for living. Our mechanical engineering, critical thinking is just realistic thinking, and it is transferable to all courses. Defining, brainstorming, and analysis are used by Dr. Phillip. For art classes, we have 2 different types of instruction. We have to think about, is it performance, design, studio-based, or is it more appreciation-based? Because each uses different aspects. A creative process, a right and left brain doing things in real time, or are we looking at things after the fact and doing more of an after-the-fact analysis? With the visual arts courses, we have the analytical left brain process that is used for examining works of art and also doing a comparison method similar to the scientific method. And we also have more right brain activities, making and doing the arts, and again, comparing it to the engineering design process. We also can take engineering design and look at it from a paralleling of the sequences that are used, because the semantics are changed a little bit, but we go through the same basic steps. Sequencing, problem solving, critical thinking, aesthetic and visual design. One activity that we can do is also look at quotations and do interpretation. This can be directly applied to other courses. An example is with STEM classes, where you are translating information that an engineer might be using, but we want to make it understandable for everyone.
In music, critical thinking skills that are transferable to other classes. Music theory, it's very mathematical, so we use a lot of analyzing, identifying, and relating to a whole context to create a new identity. This is definitely transferable to all classes. In my music appreciation classes, I rely a lot on the standards for music education. There are 9 standards. I dedicate music appreciation to 6, 7, 8, and 9, listening to, analyzing, and describing music, evaluating music and performances, understanding the relationship between music and arts and discipline outside the arts, and understanding music in relation to history and culture. This crosses over into the critical thinking skills of analyzing, understanding, and evaluating. One activity is to just listen to a piece of music, identifying what is heard, and having the students use appropriate vocabulary to explain their understandings and to evaluate the music piece that they just heard. Band, I rely on standards number 2 and 3, performing on instruments alone and with others, a varied repertoire of music, and improvising melodies, variations, and accompaniments. Critical thinking-wise, we use interpreting music and notation, creating music, and evaluating music. The law professor uses analytical skills that can also be used. This is based on universal intellectual values that transcend subject matter. Student responses. All critical thinking skills can transfer. Basically, math and science are transferable to all of life, and slow and steady wins the race. Student responses continued are to interpret. Mathematics are transferable to other majors, reverse engineering skills, and most critical thinking skills are applicable to all classes and majors, says another student. Critical thinking skills can be transferable by looking at the bigger picture. Knowledge and creativity. Being creative is one of the most transferable skills because it gives someone a more creative way to see something. Listing all known variables and drawing designs to find the solution. And our concluding thoughts regarding critical thinking across disciplines. Critical thinking skills require decision-making, engage and utilize both sides of the brain. They're an integral part of the process, and they allow one to create, invent, and discover, and are human traits that exist in all of us.
Considerations include disciplines seem to be separated by semantics and terminology. The processes and steps for critical thinking are virtually the same in different courses and disciplines, as I noted earlier. Research supports and identifies commonalities in thought processes with critical thinking. Arts courses can help students see similarities and have a transference of knowledge between and across disciplines, and critical thinking is an integral part to all Polytechnic courses. Critical thinking in the conceptual age. Developing countries are moving away from the information age that require just straight, linear, logical, and analytical skills. We've moved to a conceptual age. The abilities that matter most for the new economy are artistry, empathy, passion, and seeing the big picture, and the transcendent, right brain skills that we have always associated with learning in the arts.
Why critical thinking? Critical thinking is an essential skill. The ability to think is highly desired by potential employers, especially as we move away from the information age to a conceptual age. Providing opportunities for engagement in activities which necessitate critical thinking is an important consideration as instructors develop curriculum and identify instructional techniques and plan activities. What do you think?